Hey guys, welcome back to Life by the Bow. Today we are going to be going over a very effective method based on how to fish down here in the Florida Keys. So a lot of good information in this video. You're definitely going to want to stay tuned. So the structure of this video is obviously going to be a little different versus what we typically do in our fishing videos. And we're simply doing so just so I can narrate things out for you and give you the best general understanding based on why we're doing certain things and how we're doing certain things in this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So obviously, if you want to catch bait, you're going to have to get a cast net. I suggest a 10-foot cast net. This is something that's very easy to manage. It's quick to load, and a beginner can typically pick one up and learn pretty quick based on how to throw it. And then the next thing that you want to start looking at is your mesh size. If you're a beginner thrower, I suggest going with a quarter size mesh just because there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to get really excited, you're going to find smaller baits, and you're going to want to throw on those smaller baits. And what happens with a lot of the times, if you were using, say, a bigger size mesh, like a 3/8 size mesh, those smaller baits are going to get caught in those bigger holes. So I suggest starting with a 1/4 inch mesh. As you get a little more advanced and you get better at eyeing out bigger baits versus smaller baits, you can move up to a 3/8 size mesh. And the bigger that the holes are, the faster that that net is going to sink. And you obviously want it to sink pretty fast because you want to be able to trap as many baits as possible. So let's go ahead, throw the net a couple times and get some bait in the well. Whenever you can find this many pilchards, it's like heaven when fishing down here in the Florida Keys. And there are tons of them right here. All right, get ready, guys. Watch this. So bait fishing is a lot like regular fishing in the sense that you're going to show up to bait spots and that bait is simply just not going to be there. So you're gonna have to do a lot of spot hopping. Now, if you're dialed in and you're fishing often and, say for example, you fished yesterday and that bait was there in that spot, chances are you can show up the next day and that bait is going to be there. But on the third day, a different weather pattern comes in, that bait may get blown out, it may move, go somewhere else. So having a lot of bait spots is very, very important. If you're a beginner bait fisherman, I suggest just going out on a day without even having fishing in mind. You should just strictly drive around on the boat and just look for bait spots, because the day of, when it comes down to fishing, you do not want to be looking for bait on the day that you plan on fishing. Simply just because bait fishing can take up your entire day. So therefore, you don't want to waste your day of fishing just based on bait fishing itself. So get some bait spots before you plan on going out and bait fishing. So guys, this is a great tip for those of you that bait fish a lot and you hate your boat getting dirty. As you can see, I'm loading the net here in the back of the boat, and then what I'm going to end up doing is walking forward. The reason why I load it in the back of the boat is just because all the seagrass, all the mess that drops out of the net as I'm loading it will be kind of confined to the back of the boat here. See, if you do that in the front of the boat, then all that mess is going to get up there, and then you have to clean the front of the boat and work your way back. But this kind of just minimizes the mess to the rear, so it's just less for you to clean up. All right, now they're sitting kind of far away, so we're going for a long one now. Get some momentum going, and what we're going to do is we're just going to push this net away from us. Catch him.
Getting them, baby. Getting them.
So whenever I'm looking for a pilchard spot, there's a couple things that I'm looking for. And it typically starts with either a mangrove shoreline, a grass flat, or some moving water. If you can find all three of those things together, that's typically a very good place to start. Though it doesn't have to be all those three things paired together. You can simply sometimes just find them on a grass flat alone, a mangrove shoreline alone, or in a channel alone. So when you have all three of those things paired together, if you're a beginner, those are the places that I would start. Now, on a glass calm morning like we had today, bait fishing can be very, very easy. And the reason why is just because when that water is nice and glassy, it's nice and flat, what happens is when these pilchards are very happy, they're comfortable, you can see them flipping and jumping out of the water. And when that water's nice and flat, it makes it very easy to see that from afar. So rather than pulling up into a bait spot, you can sometimes just kind of hang back, just look around, and just look for that flipping, look for the pilchards jumping. Another pretty good sign to look for is pelicans or birds. If you can find a group of birds up against a shoreline or on a grass flat, and especially if they're crashing down into the water, you can almost guarantee that there is bait there. So those are a couple tips that I can give a beginner bait fisherman based on how to actually find a good pilchard spot. So finally, we've acquired all of our bait and we have a ton of it. So it's time to go fishing. But before we get out there, I just want to inform you guys very briefly, just be careful when catching too much bait, because basically when you catch too much bait, what can happen is you can choke off all the baits as a whole, just because when you have too much bait in a live well, all of those baits are gonna breathe up all of that oxygen faster than the bait well can pump in new, clean, oxygenated water. Another thing I suggest is put a clear live well lid on your live well. There's been tons of times where I've showed up to a fishing spot and I've opened up my well and all of those baits were dead. On the other hand, you know, if there's somebody in the boat, all it takes is just a quick glance to just look down at that well and just see if those baits are alive and they're well and they're healthy. But now that we've acquired the bait, let's get to the fun part. Let's head out there and let's do some fishing. So now we're gonna finally talk about live chumming, and there's definitely some technique involved, and there is a rhythm and there is a system to doing so, and I'm gonna try to explain that as clearly as possible. First things first, you wanna hook your bait on your actual fishing rod. And when doing that, you wanna make sure to use a hook and a leader that is matched up to the size of your bait. I can't walk you through that. That's just something that you'll have to see and know visually. And the reason that this is important is just because if you're using a big hook or you're using a really big leader, that bait is simply not going to swim naturally, and that's probably the most important part.
Get it work. We got a nice tuna on right now.
So I had to let Nick pull on a fish. He has been working just as hard as me today, trying to get out here and make this day happen, but except he's been behind the camera and basically playing mate with me all day. So we caught two of them, and I thought it was more than right to let Nick go ahead and pull on one. Feel like you got some size to him, huh?
Yep.
Whoop, whoop. There we go, baby. Yes, sir. That's the biggest tuna of the day right there. It is imperative to hook that bait and get it in the water as fast as possible. Pilchards, they're very fragile. If they stay out of the water for an extended period of time, or you drop them on the deck, you might as well just throw that bait out, start fresh, start over again. You know, if you're taking more than probably 10 seconds to do that entire process, you might as well just grab a new bait, start all over again. Maybe 10 is a little too short, maybe 15, 20 seconds at the most, but it's supposed to be as quick as possible. So once you got your bait in the water, you want to take a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, maybe even 4 dozen baits, depending on how much bait you have, and just basically hit the bottom of that net and just send all of those pilchards flying. That's where the frenzy is created. Once those pilchards hit the water, they're gonna start going crazy and they're gonna freak out. They're like, holy crap, we're in a whole new place, and they're gonna try to swim as fast as possible into a little bait ball. And the next thing you know, the fish are gonna start coming up and they're just gonna start busting and destroying those baits. And here's the key. You wanna make sure to throw all those freebie baits in the same area where you threw out your hook bait, because you want that hook bait to swim as a part of the group. And really just make that fish's decision very clear based on what it wants to do, which is just to eat no matter what the bait looks like.
We got one on, baby. As you can see, all these other boats here, they're trolling for them. Obviously, our technique is very different. How can you not love that? I mean, come on. On the brand new reels, too. I think we might have a nice fish on here. Another beautiful tuna.
So that's really it, guys. I mean, that is the foundation behind catching live bait, going out and live chumming, or really just live bait fishing in general. There's only so much that I can include into one video, which is why I suggest watching all of our videos. And especially because we make it fun, we have a good time, we laugh, and at the same time, we always just, include as much information as possible.
This fish did not know he was hooked, and then he saw that boat and he was like, nope, I ain't going up there. He's coming though. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get this fish. And you can tell it's a tuna too, because you see how that rod tip just digs? It has this distinct vibration to it. You always know it's a tuna. Wow, look at that. Nicest tuna of the day, baby. Look at that right there. Yoo-hoo! That's the biggest one I've caught in a while. How about that? Now that's a jumbo football right there, baby. Check that out. Beautiful big blackfin tuna. So that's actually a little bit above average right there. Look at that. Look at how those are moving. You see that? That's how he steers through the water. They're just going left and right like rudders. Isn't that crazy? Wow, man. I want to say this is the biggest tuna I've caught all year. So we started with a little dinks and we ended with a really, really nice one. It doesn't get better than that.
I know that there's probably a lot of people out there that are watching this video and they're probably very experienced when it comes to live bait fishing. So if you have a couple tips that you think that maybe somebody watching this video could acquire, go ahead and write it down in that comment section below, just in case somebody's watching this video, they want to learn more, they can just go down to the comments and just hear all the nice things that you guys have to provide and just share. But other than that, just go ahead. If you just enjoyed this video, you got some value out of it, go ahead, write that down in the comments section. I would greatly appreciate that. But as always, check out Avail Performance Gear. The link is in the description below, and much more to come. Once again, we appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.